Welcome, it's indisputable, good to be with you. We got a lot on the agenda today. Breaking down news of the day, me. In the bullpen segment, my debate segment, we have Mr. Satyajeet Marar. He's been on here before. We're going to break down Russian sanctions and what they actually mean, not only to Vladimir Putin, but to the country of Russia and the international conflict. Top story of the day. There's a man, a father, who went into a church. He was inside of a church, shoots his 3 children, and also kills himself. Put up a picture of the killer. Okay. Now this story has a lot of twists and turns, and it shows not only criminality, but also systemic failures on top of each other. This man fatally shot 3 of his children and another adult at a Sacramento church Monday night before killing himself. He has now been identified as 39-year-old David Rojas. That's according to the Sacramento County Coroner's Office. Now, here's what's interesting. This information is starting to come in now. He was not allowed to have a gun. Based on his background, he should not have had access to a gun, but he did. So authorities are now investigating, well, how did he get access to a weapon when he was barred by law due to his background from having it? Well, I can tell you how he got access to a gun. The United States of America has a gun culture. It is easy to get a gun without going through the legal process or protocol in order to have one. We have a gun culture in the United States. Do you think people give a damn about your policy when there is a culture that eats policy alive? His 3 daughters have been identified. This is so sad. 9-year-old Samara Mora Gutierrez. 10-year-old Samantha Mora Gutierrez. And 13-year-old Samia Mora Gutierrez. Nathaniel Kong, 59 years of age, was supervising the family visit. He was also killed in the shooting. Now, according to the background of this story, the man who committed these murders was actually staying at the church. It was part of a program. And the church would allow for these supervised visitations. Well, the reason why the visitation was supervised is because the killer had a history of violence and a history of mental health disorders. There was a memorial for the 3 young girls. Here's the makeshift memorial to celebrate their life. There's more. The killer had a restraining order against him and had to visit his kids with supervision, according to the Sacramento County Sheriff. Scott Jones told reporters earlier the children's mother was cooperating with authorities. The incident was the 70th, yeah, you heard that right, 70, mass shooting in 2022, according to CNN in the United States, with at least 4 people injured or killed, not including the shooter, according to Gun Violence Archive. No one else in the church at the time of the shooting was involved. Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District Captain Parker Wilborn told CNN. Most were employees or congregants, he said. No one else at the scene required medical aid. It's not clear whether a service or event was happening at the church at the time. The fire official previously told CNN that the 5th person found dead was identified as the shooter's wife. We now believe that obviously to not be true. CNN reached out to try to get clarification on that. We do not believe that reporting is accurate from CNN. Governor Gavin Newsom described the shooting as another senseless act of gun violence in America. Our hearts go out to the victims, their families, and their communities. So let's talk about the failures here. One, you have a protocol in the state that allows for supervised visitation, either a social worker and a facility, or a police department. Police precincts will allow for these supervised visitations when there's a history of violence or violent mental health disorders. They will allow for that. That was something the church decided not to engage in. It is an open opportunity partnership for churches that do this kind of work to engage in. I understand that those at this ministry, they thought they were doing the right thing and they wanted to be helpful. But there is a reason why protocol does exist. There's a reason why best practices do exist. In this case, if the best practices protocol would have been followed, these children would be alive, that supervisor would be alive, and the individual who killed them, who obviously also needed mental health care, would be alive as well. Here's another failure. He was not legally allowed to have a gun, not by way of that facility, not on the property, and also not by law. He was not supposed to have a weapon. Somewhere it broke down. And don't automatically think that somebody from the street sold him a weapon. He could have very well received this weapon from a store, from a gun collector, a gun salesperson. It does not mean he got the gun off the street. The problem is the systemic failures as it relates to gun regulation in America. Now, what are Republicans passing all over the country? They're passing a law called constitutional carry. They want to deregulate the industry of guns even more. They want to make it so easy for people to have guns that it would be illegal for law enforcement to ask, do you have a permit for that weapon? They want to make sure that it's illegal for someone to do a check or to have a license before they have a gun. That's what constitutional carry means. Our hearts and prayers are with the family that's remaining out of this violent saga. But we continue to see how policy impacts real people every day. Next story. State of the Union. Biden said a whole lot of nothing. Now, I still give him a C+ in the overall analysis, but let me break down some elements of this State of the Union that should concern you. Now, he boldly said, fund the police as a way to categorize his difference of opinion connected to defund the police, which is connected to Black Lives Matter, which is connected to the movement for equity and justice in the United States of America. Now remember, black folks showed up for Joe Biden. Black people showed up for Joe Biden, showed up for the senators that Joe Biden endorsed. Here's some of that.
I know what works. Investigating crime prevention and community policing, cops who walk the beat, who know the neighborhood, and who can restore trust and safety. Let's not abandon our streets or choose between safety and equal justice. Let's come together and protect our communities, restore trust, and hold law enforcement accountable. That's why the Justice Department has required body cameras, banned chokeholds, and restricted no-knock warrants for its officers. That's why the American Rescue Plan that you all provided $350 billion that cities, states, and counties can use to hire more police, invest in more proven strategies. Proven strategies like community violence interruption, trusted messengers, breaking the cycle of violence and trauma, and giving young people some hope. We should all agree the answer is not to defund the police, it's to fund the police. Fund them. Fund them. Fund them with resources.
Let me count the ways here. Police departments all across the United States of America have received more funding in the last 2 years than in the history of the existence of a known police department in the United States of America. It has not decreased crime. It has not resolved. It has not created remedy for injustice and violence. You still have record police involved murders. You have record police involved prosecutions where they are prosecuted by the local, state, or federal government. More money has not solved that problem. And as a matter of fact, I want you to think of it this way. If your city or your county is bragging about hiring more cops and you are applauding that, do you understand what they're actually saying? They're telling you they cannot solve the problems. If your county, your city is hiring more cops, cops are reactionary to crime. If your city is hiring more cops, that means that they need more reaction to crime, which also means they have not addressed the criminality in their city or county. That's what it means. Hiring cops, more cops, is not something to brag about. The need for less cops is what you brag about. Because crime has decreased so much, we have to now restrict the number of cops we hire because we don't need as many cops anymore. That's the idea. That should be the goal, to have less cops in your city, not more cops, because police officers are reactionary agents. It's not creative for these cities to simply tell you, we're going to hire more cops. Now applaud for us while we do nothing to decrease crime. Ithaca, New York. We had the mayor of Ithaca, New York. He just got out of that office a few days ago, but he created a program that did hire more workers, but not more cops. He hired individuals who could connect to the community, and they have been thriving as a city. You have these progressive ideas all over the country. Now, I gotta remind folks, why they keep saying defund the police is a bad thing. Remember, defund the police is about reprioritizing the police budget. It is not about taking away any of the police. That is not the issue. That is not what we're trying to do with defund the police. But here's what actually does defund the police. Lawsuits defund the police. Corrupt cops defund the police. Police stealing funds defunds the police. Union bosses like the one in New York who just got indicted was stealing from the police. Those are the people that defund the police. All right, Biden touted funding the American Rescue Plan, the pandemic relief package passed under his watch that local governments can use to bolster police forces. Biden's push against defunding the police echoes the recent stance of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who last month said the slogan is dead and not Democrats' position. Speak for your damn self. I'm still yelling defund the police, reprioritize the police budget, actually resolve the underlying issues of criminality. Some jurisdictions, 80% of the people in their local jail are there because of crimes of survival, crimes of trespass, crimes associated with drugs, alcohol, and mental health disorder. How in the hell is hiring a new cop going to solve that? Defund the police. Congresswoman Cori Bush called out the president on Twitter for avoiding the topic of racial issues in America. Let's put that up. Cori Bush said, with all due respect, Mr. President, you did not mention saving black lives once in this speech. All our country has done is given more funding. The result, question mark. 2021 set a record for fatal police shootings. Defund the police, invest in our communities. Okay, listen. It's going to take a real paradigm shift for this to change. Let's bring this back to a common sense discussion. Police agencies are local public servants. They serve the public good of the local community, funded by the tax base of that local area. You have many government departments. You have watershed management. You have transportation. Have you ever heard anyone say, watershed management is corrupt, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to make sure they get better training. No, they get fired or they get arrested. Why is it that policing is the only industry in government where no one is talking about replacement and holding them truly accountable? All right, just my 2 cents about the State of the Union, all right? Okay, once again, Minneapolis, they're lying. You remember when they told you, hey, we're gonna do the moratorium on no-knock warrants. After violating the moratorium on no-knock warrants, They're still doing no-knock warrants. They did a no-knock warrant to find a dog. I kid you not. Let me remind you of what happened to Mr. Amir Locke. Here it is. Mr. Amir Locke was a registered gun owner, not subject to the investigation, not a target of the warrant. This happened in Minneapolis. The mayor said that he had a policy which created a no-knock warrant policy ban, except for extreme situations. Well, we found out that that was simply a lie. And now, after the death of Amir Locke, you have the mayor, he goes on television, he says, we have now a moratorium, him and the interim police chief. We have a moratorium now on no-knock warrants. Oh, okay, it's for real this time, all right? It's for real this time. Well, not according to the practice of the police. Okay, reporting from local news station KARE 11, KARE 11, notes the mayor and the police chief, Arredondo, announced that Minneapolis was changing its policy to put strict limits on the use of no-knock warrants. All right, we talked about it here on Indisputable. 4 months prior to a raid at the home of Princess Fort, which took place as the nation was gripped by fallout over the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor at the hands of police, they found that a heavily armed SWAT team yelled, "Police, search warrant," at the front door of Fort and her now former boyfriend, Marvin Johnson. In the early morning hours, March 17, 2021, before knocking at the door knocking in the door with a battering ram, one officer reportedly fired shotgun rounds through the door a mere 6 seconds into the raid, while another officer broke their windows from outside. Let me show you a clip of the body camera footage, okay? This is them breaching the door. A shotgun blast did that. Inside, the officers encountered Fort and Johnson, who were barely clothed, and handcuffed them, making them sit on a couch with only blankets to cover their bodies. The two repeatedly asked what was going on and requested permission to put on underwear. "This is crazy," sobs Fort, who begs the officers, according to the report, which reviewed the body camera footage, to stop the destruction of things in her home. "Please, please, don't break nothing else. Please, just don't break nothing else." Let me show you a picture of them zip tied to their own furniture while SWAT runs through their home, breaking things. I would have to say that we've been very cordial, a SWAT officer tells them. "There's a search warrant going on, okay?" The guy said they have been cordial after shooting their door in. "To get us here, something big is going on," he explains. "Where is the baby pit bull?" That's on the recording, everybody. Where is the pit bull? Now, I'm an animal lover. I love animals. I've rescued cats for years. But you have to think about the extreme here. To shoot in a door in search for a pit bull. Now, it's a cute pit bull, I give them that. Put up a picture of the pit bull. Okay? You know, those two individuals on the couch could be dead right now because of their tactics. And that's what I'm highlighting in this segment. Authorities say a couple who breeds pit bulls claimed Johnson met with them after finding them on Facebook. And that is, they showed him a puppy for sale for $2,000. He allegedly took the dog and ran off. As Johnson ran, according to the allegation, the two say a gun fell out of his pants and he picked it up and pointed it at them. The puppy and handgun were recovered from the home. However, the investigation questions the need for such an invasive raid for a pit bull. Ford, who was reportedly given the puppy by Johnson as a gift, and her 4-year-old son were evicted and left homeless as a result of the incident. So I want you to understand the cause and effect relationship here. The mother, the woman, she received the pit bull as a gift. If this crime happened, she knew nothing about it. But because of the way they came into that apartment, the apartment complex decided to evict her. Now, if this would have been handled as a theft, then you don't have a shotgun to the door, you have an arrest made. And he gets his day, obviously, in court still. According to the report, Johnson was eventually charged with aggravated robbery and possession of a firearm. But once again, the question is the tactic, right? The question is the tactic. And according to the mayor of Minneapolis, them doing a no-knock warrant in that scenario is now against policy. Who's going to hold them accountable? All right, we got more on the other side. It's indisputable, stick and stay.
Do all of you know the Young Turks?
An outlet like yourself that are willing to cover this story from the very beginning.
You have the Young Turks and a bunch of other progressive forces saying this is the time to fight for our values.
And I think right now there are a lot of progressive voters, many leftists who feel like they don't have a home.
And this is why what Cenk and the Young Turks are doing is so important.
What we've done is sustainable, slow, healthy growth. And I think that's the way news should be, where you don't rely on sensationalist stuff. You don't lean on whatever's trendy in the news at any given moment. You just go with the truth.
You gave me a platform.
You've uplifted so many other progressive voices through this network, and you're constantly looking for people that you can amplify through the work we do, through the infrastructure that you built at TYT.
It takes those early people who believe that can really be the seeds of this movement, and that has been the Young Turks.
We're super serious about the news. We also managed to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We're not TYT, you're TYT.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Idarola. This is gonna be a big one.
Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report, the Arctic's on fire. Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children. Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Dr. Rashad Richard. We got a lot happening today. But what do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable.
Rashad, great to be here. Congratulations on the new show. And I gotta let everybody know that Rashad and I go way back.
Here's the pattern that we see in all of these Karen stories. They think they own stuff they do not own. Now, where does that come from? I don't know, maybe slavery. Maybe they think they should still own black people.
This is what happens when Karens weaponize the police.
When you're used to privilege, equality seems like oppression.
It hits you in a certain way when someone is holding you against your will, treating you like you're a criminal and you're an innocent person. This is something that black people face no matter where they are.
A stronger black economy lends itself to a stronger, greater economy. Don't think it's exclusive of you, it's inclusive of you.
What's your beef with critical race theory?
It adds more fuel to the fire of the racist tendencies that we already have.
We have a generation of problem solvers that can remedy the problem if they are properly taught what the problem is.
You know who created redlining in this country? It was a white liberal.
I don't give a damn who created it. If it's a racist policy, Shelley, here's what I don't know. I don't know. See, there you go filibustering, brother. You're scared of this truth, but you're gonna get it though.
I'm back to gaslighting. Did you and I talk about gaslighting on Old School?
Probably.
That boss gaslit all his female employees. People who manipulate others like that make you feel like you're the weirdo. Why won't you punch yourself in the face? what is wrong with you? And you're like, oh my God, I feel so bad. Why didn't I just punch myself in the face and poke my eye out? I'm 47 and I just figured it out like earlier this year.
You figured out somebody was doing it to you or that you were
that it was that it would have been happening my whole life and I didn't realize it.
Right.
All right, welcome back. Good to be with you. We're going to have coming up Bain, founder and executive director of Community Capacity Development, will be contributing to the stories today. Let me go to some of these comments. I cannot read all of them. I will read as many as I can. Thank you for opining. Before I do that, let me remind everybody the watch list, okay? J.R. Jackson, beautiful show. I mean, remarkable show. Watch live every weekday, 12 p.m. Eastern time, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Find out what stories you should be paying attention to in news, politics, culture, current events, sports, and more. This is a new 10-week test series on TYT. Make sure to support J.R. Jackson by watching live, all right? And don't forget to subscribe and follow youtube.com/watchlistTYT and facebook.com/watchlistTYT. Aspiration, all right? Aspiration has the first ever credit card that gives the user the ability to eliminate their carbon footprint. Each time the card is swiped, Aspiration's global partners will plant a tree. Now you can fight the climate crisis through your wallet. Eliminate your carbon footprint, get cash back while doing so. Want to find out more information? Get started. Go to tyt.com/0, the word zero. All right. Shop TYT mug. We got the big homie. That's the big homie, man. So Brett is turning 40, all right? That's surprising. I knew he was at least 50. I said Brett is at least 50, 51. No, he looks younger than 40. Just joking. He can appreciate the humor. Shop TYT just released their first piece of happy half-hour merchandise. And I have to say, is really damn awesome. All right, check it out. The let's call it coffee mug available for pre-order now at shoptyt.com. I want somebody, take it to work, okay? Just see how people respond to it. All right, let us know. Okay, a lot of comments, let's get to it. Lynn says, and if this isn't horrible enough, I can't help but think the father shot the adult moderator first, meaning the girls witnessed that killing before their own. Very sad. Chicago Good Night Beer Dragon says the gun madness will go on as long as we allow private ownership of guns. Lynn says Kamala and Nancy are nodding their heads during Biden's defund speech, resembling bobbleheads. Yeah, this is problematic for Democrats because it was the crowd. It was that crowd that took them over the finish line. They are alienating that crowd now. Trinity, aka Forest Dragon, Frosty Dragon, excuse me. The people and the dog could have been killed by the shotgun blast. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Sortilum says, oof, when Doc grades you a C+, you know you done effed up. Anytime my students get a C from me, they don't complain because they know they earned that C. I'm such a fair professor. I'm a fair professor. And in all of my years of being a professor, I have never failed a student. Because my students do not fail, all right? That's on me. If my students fail, that's on me, all right? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish a Karen would.
You wanna call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
You're still free, back off! I'm gonna tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Yeah?
Really?
I'm not racist. I just don't like the fact that you people are taking over everything. You bitch and complain about this and that, but everything commercial like you. Every commercial that no more white people, no more white power. Yeah, white power. Record me. Record me. Let's get started.
As I have said before many times on Indisputable, we provide a few things here with the Karen highlights. Obviously, the Karenicity runs deep in this one. We provide a mirror for reflection and a mirror for correction. This is out of Canada. The location that this Karen is in has a makeup, I'm talking about ethnicity makeup, predominantly Asian, 46% East Asian, 20% white, 5% black. Is noted in that particular community. So the question is, if she is such a racist individual, why does she go to places where she is bound to run into individuals who do not look like her? Maybe that's done intentionally. Bain, what are your thoughts here, brother?
Wow, so first and foremost, thank you for having me again, my good brother. Pleasure as always to be here. It was interesting that this young lady was given a lecture and a speech on racism, but did not understand the definition of racism. I think it was Trish Rose who talked about structural racism being the normalization and legitimization of an array of dynamics, historical, cultural, institutional, and interpersonal that routinely advantage whites while producing cumulative and chronic adverse outcomes for people of color. That is a definition of racism, not what she was saying. I don't know where people are getting these definitions, but the power and the prejudice have to both be there for us to be having a conversation about racism.
Yeah, and that's interesting how you contextualize that, because I agree completely. And some of my white students are always surprised, especially when they are experiencing their first semester with me. I say, listen, people of color cannot be racist.
Cannot.
They cannot be racist because racism requires prejudice plus power. Racism is an ism. It is a team sport, basically, and it's the structure of it has to be intentionally deconstructed. It's a design thing, and if you are not part of the design, you are not inside of that thing. All right, so you can be in charge of helping deconstruct it. You can be a leader in that sense, but you can never be racist in the traditional sense. You can be bigoted, absolutely, but you cannot be racist. Racist requires power and prejudice. All right. Talking about discriminatory actions, let me take it to Israel. I know some people don't like me telling the truth about Israel, but it's going to be told here. Let me show you the video of what's happening in Israel. I know the world is focused on the conflict in Ukraine. What you just witnessed were Israeli forces, police forces, brutalizing, assaulting, attacking Palestinians, including children. What you saw should shock your soul. They were being sprayed with a substance that smells like rotting flesh. They were being beaten. As a matter of fact, one of those clips is a child, a female child, being beaten, physically beaten with fists by Israeli police. Now, there are some Israeli-based groups that have come out against this discriminatory activity, and they are denouncing the Israeli police for acting in such a manner against Palestinians. So I do not want you to take away from this that all Israelis think alike, no more than all Americans think alike. They are not monolithic. But this is a truth that we have to highlight because this has barely been covered on the national scale, but we will cover it on this national show. Let me give you some background. This was yesterday. Palestinians gathered together to do what? To celebrate their religious festivities. And they have been met with not only threats, but also physical violence. The festival includes face paintings. They sell particular items. It's a celebration, okay? So I'm gonna get into that in a minute. Israeli police attacked Palestinians at Damascus Gate in Jerusalem who were celebrating their Muslim holiday, religious festival making Prophet Muhammad's journey to the heavens, all right? And this is something that's common, is done, and it's typically celebrated by those who identify across the globe, all right? Tensions grew in the city as more people arrived at Al-Aqsa Mosque. The Israeli police assaulted and clashed with Palestinians before bringing a sewage water vehicle to disperse the protesters, all right? And they say you can't get this smell out of your skin for days, okay? Dozens of Palestinians were injured and others were detained. Sources in Jerusalem said the occupation forces arrested at least 4 civilians, including a child, after assaulting them. You had stun grenades shot directly at Palestinians. It injured multiple children. This is a picture of an 11-year-old girl who was a special needs child who was shot in the face. She has a broken jaw. She has a massive laceration on her face and on her neck. Look at that. There's also a 6-month-old baby who was injured from the shrapnel from the grenade. Updated numbers, Israeli forces reportedly injured 31 Palestinians, arrested 20. Many of those arrested were under the age of 15. They were simply exercising a festival right based on their religion, not harming anyone. This was not even a protest. This was an exhibition of their values. And this is what happened. The confrontations raised doubts about an Israeli decision to reduce tensions in the region before Ramadan, which this year falls at the beginning of April. The Israeli authorities had decided to forego the iron barriers at the Damascus Gate area this year during Ramadan month. It will instead allow cultural activities, including opening Ramadan tents and kiosks selling food and sweets to maintain calm. However, the Palestinians' first celebration in the region held after the decision was met with police violence. Let me remind everybody, Israeli police force, they are the civilian police. They are under the direct jurisdiction of the Minister of Public Security. It is a nationalized police force, okay? All right, Bain, what are your thoughts on this?
What comes to mind immediately, bro, is the late great Nipsey Hussle.
Yeah.
How would you react if we murdered your children? Said in a verse. How would you react if we murdered your children? My mind goes to law enforcement and the abuse of power. You were talking earlier about defund the police, and if that's realistic, or the reactions that are happening around the United States with regard to that terminology. Something is going on in the training, in the psychology of those we are entrusting to co-produce public safety. Again, it's public safety. So anytime we're reaching for that, there has to be buy-in by a myriad of community stakeholders. It's not one agency or entity's duty or responsibility to produce justice or public safety, but something's going wrong here and abroad when we see this type of behavior. These are entrusted people. I think that persons in this seat or capacity of law enforcement should have to have your education level of a PhD or better. If you're gonna carry a firearm, if you're gonna be militarized on that level, there needs to be a standard that well exceeds what we have now. Just a thought on how we should radically revolutionize what we call law enforcement and public safety.
You make a really compelling argument about who is attracted to the position. Who is attracted to the position? And that's why I've always advocated for 6 months in, you have to do a psychological evaluation for the rest of your career every 6 months. Because sometimes a psychologist may miss it. And other times, the cop you hired on day one is not the same cop a year from that day. All right, and you need to pick up on that. Okay.
I love it. I love it. I love it. That is fun. That's we should write that policy, brother. That's real.
Yeah, and some places are doing it, not the 6 months. We got one place that's doing it every 2 years. I know the city of Atlanta was entertaining it as a policy guide rather than a policy mandate, but it has to be mandated for it to be enforced. You already know how that works. All right, we got more on the other side. It's indisputable, stick and stay.
Our audience has given us everything, so we couldn't be more connected. When we first started, people would start giving us directions and say, okay, the mics are too large, move them. Turn them into lav mics. I mean, they were incredible. And then one guy walked in and gave us a really expensive switcher and said, you guys need this, and walked out. Okay, it's amazing. They helped us build a studio. They did a $2 million funding campaign for us. And so they really are us. We do this show together to the point where some of our hosts are even former listeners. So when we say that the audience is part of TYT, we really mean it.
I think what the audience also appreciates is especially if they're members, they really get an inside look into who we are, our personal lives, what drives and motivates us. It goes beyond just storytelling. I think that what we do is allow our viewers and our listeners into our daily lives, and we give them kind of like this inside look into everything that we're passionate about and why it is that we're doing what we're doing, right? Like the motivation behind what we're doing, I think is important for our audience to know, and we're not shy about sharing that with them. And it's different from what people typically see in legacy media outlets where everything is kind of dry and robotic and there's really no personality or authenticity that comes along with it. Oftentimes when we're doing the show, I don't really think of it as me telling them stories. I think of it as us having a mutual respect and conversation with one another. And as I said earlier, I mean, not only do I feel that through the work I do, I'm informing our audience, but they inform me oftentimes as well. You know, they'll pitch stories to us. They'll tell us, a certain perspective or angle to a story that we might have missed. And I love it.
Our TYT audience has been building this show and this network with us for 20 years. Now we're expanding and connecting our audience around the world in even more exciting and powerful ways. Look, I don't want you to miss another petition, poll, community conversation, or TYT segment. Connect with informed, passionate, and compassionate progressives, and even new progressives. They're joining our movement every day. This is gonna be amazing when we work together. So our community members are learning together, they're building lifelong relationships, and even politically organizing together. Here's what Power Slave Wolf has to say as they begin interacting with our community after making TYT their #1 trusted news source. Quote, I've been a TYT viewer since the Obama years and have since found them to be a far more trustworthy news source than most TV news outlets. Away from viewing TYT, I'm a musician, electric bass guitar, sim racer, satire enthusiast, and rollerblader, the latter being my main means of intense exercise. TYT, my local news, none of the stations in my area are Sinclair owned as far as I know, and comedy style news shows are my trusted news sources. The former and the latter both having something in common in that both have something that TV news sorely lacks, a very low tolerance for BS. So sign up for free at tyt.com/community. We're making it easier to connect, stay informed, and even take action.
Hi, I'm Bartholomew Joseph Kyle. I do audio for the main show, The Young Turks. I also do audio for Post Game. I started in 2006. I met Cenk Uygur at the Iraq for Sale screening that was directed by Robert Greenwald. And watching that, I want to figure out a way to be part of something that's genuine and authentic.
Welcome back. All right, we got a lot of comments. Let's get to it. TYT member Shakita Ganai Beer Dragon says, Canadian Karen, stay away from me. Canadian Karen, woman, let me be. Sina Hogaboom, even racists north of the border don't know history. Yeah. Greyhound Dragon says, Karen isn't even talking to anyone on the phone. Well, of course she is a Greyhound Karen. She's talking to her imaginary racist friend. That's on the other end. All right. Greyhound Dragon also says, oh my God, what the hell is that, Israel? How is that okay? I'm sickened by that video, and so should everyone else who sees it. How do we get this hatred to stop? Well, one is exposure. You know, light has a way of being a disinfectant. All right, that was Dr. King's strategy to bring light to darkness. And this is part of the process, and you are part of that process with us. A super chat. Vernon _59. Oh, Canadian Karen, save the crap for the Twitch. Rupert says she doesn't understand what racism means. And not at all. Not at all. Maple Leaf Dragon. The proper response is, I'm sorry, are you still talking? Yeah. Okay. All right. Very disturbing story. Bounty hunters, in my opinion, murder a man. We have the video, here it is.
That's wild right there.
Okay.
Finna black him in.
At the result.
Man.
They jump out.
They just immediately started shooting, bro.
Okay. They kill him. They kill him. He had no time to respond. He had no idea who was chasing him. He had no idea who was jumping out of their vehicles in plain clothes. He didn't know any of this. All right, they kill him. So this happened in Houston. A group of bounty hunters gunned down and killed a black man during a botched warrant raid. Despite this, the bounty hunters have not been arrested for his death. I got some information on the company that these bounty hunters are connected to. The bounty hunters claim they announced themselves, and it was the suspect who fired first, but surveillance videos show not the case. All right, let's put up a picture of the man they killed. The man that was killed was 31-year-old Walter Hutchins, who leaves behind a newborn baby. Now remember, these are not cops. These are bounty hunters. The bounty is the money. These are money hunters. This man is dead because they wanted money. That's why he's dead, because our justice system allows for this kind of foolishness. What they were supposed to do is directly identify this is the person in the warrant, and they could have called law enforcement if they believed that this would have been an issue with apprehending him. Or they were supposed to identify themselves in a way that absolutely makes no one doubt who they are. They didn't do either because they wanted the money. Civil rights and personal injury attorneys Ben Crump and Bob Hilliard questioned the intentions of the bounty hunter, whether or not the hunters would have received incentive even if Hutchins was killed. Here's the quote. They sat there for 6 hours. Remember, the bounty hunters sat there for 6 hours, calling the Houston Police Department and inviting them to arrest Walter instead of calling the Houston Police Department and inviting them to arrest Walter. That's because their bounty was contingent during the arrest, during the retention. What's going to be interesting to find out is, does the bounty care whether you bring them in dead or alive? Christopher Powell, a private investigator who has spent more than a decade tracking and taking down fugitives, had this to say. I make sure we are properly identifiable, Powell said. We have badges, we have our vest, they have patches on them that show what we are. The area they're in is 5th Ward, and obviously it's late at night. Just running up on someone in plain clothes, they don't know what's going on. They don't know if you're gang affiliated, if you're doing a robbery, if you're about to steal their car. That is correct, Mr. Powell, okay? In terms of charges against the bounty hunters, Houston police said the investigation into Hutch's death is still ongoing and that findings of the investigation will be presented to the DA's office, which will decide what, if any, charges the bounty hunters will face. Now that's already a cop-out, no pun intended, because Houston PD, they have the authority, the jurisdiction to arrest the bounty hunters directly. They are already telling you, no matter what they find in their investigation, they are not going to affect the arrest. They're not going to do it. Even if they find probable cause to arrest, they're going to simply hand that information over to the DA's office for them to make the decision. This is why people don't like the police. A reliable source told Fox 26 News that 2 bounty hunters involved work for a company called Fearless Bail Bonds. Put them up. Give them some business. Fox 26 News gave them a call, but they chose not to comment. So I'm sure they're gonna get more calls. Now the phone number is 713-862-8888. They are located at 4402 North Main Street, Suite B, Houston, Texas 77079. Now every time I do this, all right, I get a group of pro law enforcement people. They call me the N-word. They threaten my life. I'm scared of none of them. They're cowards. They got keyboard courage. They won't do a damn thing. The issue of life, humanity, has to be protected by the culture. We are involved in that culture, and we will protect policies and promote policies that protect life. Mr. Bain, thoughts on this case?
Earlier in the show, brother, you talked about the need for a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
And I think that's still relevant here. These are the remnants, the particles that have continued to travel through time from chattel slavery, in which property supersedes person. So that's what we're seeing in a super capitalistic material society where human life, of course there are no charges gonna be put against them. Of course, because they did the job of law enforcement. These were the original slave catchers. This was the original position, protect property. So until there's a radical, again, and I say revolutionary shift in the way that we approach safety, we are gonna see more, unfortunately, more of this and unnecessary lives lost. They did not, in what you read, they did not call the police. They waited, and then they murdered someone.
Yeah, all right, well said. There's a man who was convicted wrongfully and spent years in prison because of the testimony of one person. Put up the man's picture. His name is Broadwater. He was convicted of rape. He didn't do it. He was convicted because of corrupt cops and a lying witness. A judge has now vacated Mr. Broadwater's rape conviction in November 2021 after a movie producer, you gotta think about how this happened. A movie producer gathering research for his film had doubts about his culpability and suggested that law enforcement re-examine the case. Put up his picture again, okay? This man would still be in prison right now, this very moment, if it had not been for this one film producer. And we're gonna give him some highlights on Indisputable. Once they did, investigators saw inconsistencies and flaws in the case that supported the radical conviction reversal after 30 years. Since the ruling has been overturned, the 61-year-old man has filed a wrongful conviction lawsuit against the state. Good for him. We got more to this story. He also plans to sue the county DA's office, the city of Syracuse police, accusing the agencies of egregious misconduct, according to Davis Vanguard. Here's some background to why he was convicted. Mr. Broadwater was convicted of raping Alice Sebold in 1981. She was an 18-year-old student at Syracuse University. She said he violated her in a tunnel in Thorndon Park Amphitheater near the school's campus when she was a freshman. That was her claim. Sebold went on to be a successful author, publishing the New York Times best-selling book, Lucky. She told of a prosecutor claiming that Broadwater tricked her into picking the wrong man out of the lineup. She picked the wrong guy. Prosecutors claim Broadwater had requested Hudson, who was serving time, be added to the lineup. Broadwater denied making that request. So here's what happened, all right? So now there's a lineup. The cops are saying, okay, you picked the wrong person, but that's because the other person looks so much like the person that we know did it. So you gotta pick this other person. You were just tricked, okay? The story gets deeper. During the 2-day trial, as a result of her sole testimony, no DNA, no other witnesses, just her testimony, that she was sure Broadwater was the man who raped her, he was convicted of the crime. Then she wrote a novel. She's a successful author. She wrote a novel. In the novel, she wrote about the alleged assault, detailing how 5 months after the incident, she was able to identify the black man who raped her. Though the author said she was able to identify Broadwater when he walked innocently down the street and in the courtroom during the trial, she was unable to pinpoint him in a police lineup with other black men. She instead had chosen a man standing next to Broadwater, Henry Hudson, because they reportedly looked alike, because he refused to change his story, maintaining his innocence for the entirety of his incarceration. He was denied early release 5 times. In the year of the release of Sebold's acclaimed novel, Broadwater had to register as a sex offender. She's living her best life. He never committed the crime. There's more. Before this incident, Mr. Broadwater had absolutely no criminal record whatsoever. In 2021, Timothy McCarthy was hired to be the executive producer of the adaptation of the book Lucky, and saw things not adding up. Isn't this ironic? He was translating her book into film, and as he's reading the book, he's saying, wait a minute, this woman likely put away an innocent man. But his spirit would not allow him just to sit on that information. So he spent his own money and hired a private investigator to unpack the case and help assess if the man convicted of the rape was not actually the man who did it. Private investigator Dan Myers, a former police officer, he's a good guy, served 20 years, told the Washington Post that after speaking to the man once for an hour, he knew the man was innocent. Within 5 months of this meeting, Broadwater's name has been completely cleared. Systemic failure, systemic failure, systemic failure. But you had some private citizens who gave a damn. You know how you can start transforming the system? Be a private citizen who gives a damn. This man now has his life back and has an opportunity to continue living because citizens gave a damn. Remember that you are empowered. All right, Bain, what are your thoughts on this?
Sister, what a tragic story, bittersweet. Thankful that he was liberated, but 30 years of your life for something you did not do, and to carry, sin is sin, but to be called a rapist, a convicted rapist, must be a heavy, heavy cross to bear.
Sure.
Knowing you're innocent, fighting to prove it. To your point, systems have failed us in this country on many levels. Systems are made of people. They are made of individuals. So the individual has power, and we have to start unifying, collecting ourselves around that power. Tragic story, but happy that the brother is home.
Yeah. All right. Take it back to the home front, politics in the United States of America. Republican leader Kevin McCarthy is afraid to denounce white nationalists. He's afraid to speak against members of his party that are down with white nationalism. Here's the clip.
On to Marjorie Taylor Greene attending the white nationalist conference over the weekend.
You know what? I commented on that on yesterday. I understand your job. I understand what you're trying to do. I've already commented on that. we've got a war in Europe that we have not had since World War II. We've got people in a village and others, and you can take my statement that I said yesterday and play it one more time.
Sit your scary ass down. Now that's a scary fella. No leadership whatsoever. He's afraid to say, yeah, no, we don't have any room for white nationalism. And those who support them, we don't have room for them either. He's afraid to say things like that, all right? He wants you to focus on Ukraine. Okay, let's do that. Because the guy that you're protecting, Nick Fuentes, had this to say.
And now they're going on about Russia and Vladimir Putin is Hitler, and they say that's not a good thing. And can we give a round of applause for Russia? Yes. Absolutely, absolutely. We are honored, we are humbled and excited to welcome to the stage right now for our first speech, and we love to get to know her much better. I think this is going to be the beginning of something great. The representative from Georgia, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
That was the white nationalist conference that Marjorie Taylor Greene was the keynote at, pro-Putin, pro-Trump, pro-white nationalist, anti-democracy, by the way. McCarthy is afraid to call that out. There were other lawmakers there as well. You also had an Arizona state senator, Wendy Rogers, praised the leader of the white nationalist group, Mr. Fuentes. Here's what she said.
I truly respect Nick because he's the most persecuted man in America. He's been deplatformed everywhere, debanked, put on no-fly lists, and attacked for simply saying things the media and the far left don't like. He had to create his own platform just to be able to speak. Unbelievable. Standing up to the tyranny is our American way.
Let me point out the irony here. When the lawmaker out of Arizona said, he just says things that the media doesn't like, somebody in the crowd yelled out, the N-word. And everybody just roared in laughter. The N-word, yeah, he says the N-word all the time. Yeah, we don't like that. You are absolutely correct. We do not like racists. We want to cancel racists. I follow in the spirit of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Ralph David Abernathy, and others who said cancel racist white people. Cancel them. So you're right. We want you canceled. We don't want you here. We don't. Put up the picture of the white nationalists who are now the face of the Republican Party. There it is. Those are white nationalists. What are black Republicans going to do? Not a damn thing. Nothing. Sad. Mr. Bain, thoughts on this?
Spent yesterday celebrating Mr. Harry Belafonte's 95th birthday.
Yep.
In New York City with some incredible guests. Yeah, coming out of that and watching this,
yeah,
it's like an alternative universe. You know, you had Lawrence Fishburne, Spike Lee, you had Dave Chappelle, you had Whoopi Goldberg, all these incredible examples of black excellence. And I'm still off the euphoria of that experience, that event. Mr. B's been family to us for some time. I almost don't have words for this level of ignorance and hatred. You know, the spewing of hatred. And then to not be able to say, you know, run the video. Let's see the video. Do we have the video? I haven't seen the video. There's a video that exists with the denouncing of this.
No, it doesn't exist. He lied.
Doesn't exist. So, no. Okay, I guess that's a nice magic trick that he played on us right there then.
Yeah.
Very nice magic trick.
Well, brother, I appreciate all that you do, man. You are a leader, a scholar, and an advocate extraordinaire. All the time. It's a pleasure having you on Indisputable. Tell people, thank you, brother. Tell people how they can check you out, follow your work.
Oh man, check us out, aboutccd.org. Community Capacity Development, the Human Justice Network. Always a pleasure to be on Indisputable with my big bro. Salute. Peace and blessings.
Peace and blessings. All right, we got more on the other side. The bullpen is next. Stick and stay.
You know, old school's pitched to me from Jank. It'll just be me, you, Jesus, Ben, and maybe Michael. And we're like, okay, cool. I can do that every week. As you can see, me, Jesus, Ben.
When you make the order, it says, don't exceed $20.01. So I'll just order literally anything to get it as close to that as I possibly can.
I'm sorry that I ordered $45 worth of food and got an email saying, sir, would you like to rethink that? What are you talking about?
I was in hell. I was just like, oh my God, the theater's empty, nobody's here. Everyone on screen keeps fucking cursing. Why did I let this happen? And the whole thing looks like it was shot through a glass of milk. My mom's gonna be so mad.
If you're looking for a heart attack, the short way, baby.
Wrong. I did put mayonnaise on it. I'm the most in shape, overweight person you'll find.
That's right.
He was like, why didn't you answer my call? I called you 39 times.
Yuck. But what makes you stop right before 40? What makes you say, nah, man, I ain't doing that no more. I'm cool.
And I called you back on the air. And I was like, okay, Kevin Smith, big shot. What the you said you'd come on and you didn't come on.
I'm sure I took that very well.
Yeah, you did. You called me back the next day and said, I thought it was 7 a.m. And there's now deep fake porn. I don't know if you guys have heard of this.
I heard of it. I just had some in the car.
I'll tell you who I'm not Ben Mankiewicz. Have you guys ever felt that?
Not ever.
And now it's just the three of us.
This is the intimate hour.
By the way, the last half hour of this, we're not even rolling.
Fair enough.
Right, easily.
See, I watch movies.
I'm done with both of you.
Once Greg starts laughing, I can't stop. And I was just gonna ask you about getting high, snoogans, snoochie boochies.
And members, of course, you can get the whole damn thing. TYT.com, join and free trial.
I'm old school with the old folks. Good.
John, come back.
Field goal here. It's time to switch to beer.
Oh, man.
Oh, God.
Do your best.
He's a little like...
Oh. No one's happy now.
Give him another try.
Oh. Wow.
This is the weirdest game.
I'm Brett. I would like to refer to this segment as the Do I Still Have This Talent show. So I want to see if I can play harmonica without my hands. I don't know why I have that. Nothing's gonna be more impressive than that. I can also spin a basketball on my finger. While drinking. I'm gonna spin a basketball on my finger while drinking apple juice. You can do this, dude. It's also flat. I don't know if that helps or hurts. And it seems to be somewhat wobbly. Ta-da! Nope, I don't know how to do this one. This one's a fail. Nope. Oh God, I'm so mad.
Welcome back. We still got a lot of show left. Let me read some of these comments and then we'll go to the bullpen. Sina Hogelboom said keyboard courage. That's awesome. Yeah, that's what I call it. Warlock says standing up to white supremacy is American too. Seems they forget that. That's true. Very true. Vincent Gallimore. It's against the law for bounty hunters to carry weapons in Texas. Level 2 security guards can't carry weapons on duty. We got to check that law out. Ms. Robin says there's no spine in his body. Yeah, him scared. Focus trees. All black people look alike? ? Oh, I see. Sarcastic Snowflake says, damn, one person really can make a difference, and a huge difference. That was the biggest difference in the world. All right. And think about the integrity of the man who was arrested. He had an opportunity to be released early 5 times. All he had to do was say, you know what, y'all got me. I'm the man who did the rape. That I did it. No, he didn't. And he said, put me back in jail. I'm not admitting to something I never did. That's integrity, man. That's integrity. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the bullpen. He's back. We have Satyajeet Marar, who is a research associate for the Center of Independent Studies, technology writer, and policy analyst. Very smart guy. Mr. Marar, thank you for being on the show. How are you?
Hey, good to be here.
All right, so we're gonna chop it up about sanctions in Russia, if they are effective or not. I don't want to presume what you know or believe about these sanctions. So if you would, give us your sentiment and I will then respond.
Sure, look, Russia had been contemplating what happened a few days ago, possibly for up to 20 years. Since 1997, there was a handshake agreement between the US and the Russian government at the time against further expansion of NATO into Russia's sphere of influence. Now, of course, this was never put into a proper treaty. The idea that this was a permanent state of affairs was never really on the table, but ever since then, things have been changing rather drastically in terms of the Russian camp. What we now find ourselves in is a situation that Russia has prepared for a very long time. With that being said, the sanctions that are currently being contemplated are causing tremendous damage to the Russian economy. If we do want to take these further and cause even more damage, that can be done. The two main instruments that are causing the most hurt are firstly cutting off Russian banks from the international SWIFT system. This is a system that allows for international money transfers in a safe and secure way. Cutting Russia off completely from this, and they have not gone that far yet, but cutting them off completely would make it impossible for Russian businesses to receive payments from foreign customers and foreign businesses to, of course, pay the Russian companies that they've hired. And unfortunately, as things currently stand, the European Union and other parties have been reluctant to extend this as far as the energy sector goes, which is one of Russia's most powerful sectors. The reason, of course, being that this is the point where the sanctions are not only going to severely hurt Russia, but severely possibly hurt and damage the countries and economies that are going ahead with the sanctions. Gas is currently expensive globally as things stand. There is an inflation crisis happening in the United States. This could make things even more difficult. The price of oil right now is about $75 US a barrel. It could go all the way up to 125, and we're all going to be feeling the pinch there. The second instrument is to sanction Russia's central bank. About 45% of Russia's foreign exchange reserves are denominated in dollars or euros. Making it hard for Russia to access these reserves would, of course, cause tremendous damage, but it could also lead to Russia forming a close relationship with China to try and offset some of this damage that's going on.
Yeah, there's a movement, there's a campaign inside of Russia right now to stop Russian citizens from converting rubles into other currency so they won't feel the impact of how the strength of their currency has diminished significantly. But let me highlight a few things about sanctions, okay? So sanctions are really meant to make the citizens of the country uncomfortable. That's what they're really meant to do. So in order for sanctions to work, you must make an assumption that I'm not sure if it applies to Putin. The assumption is that Putin gives a damn about the citizens of Russia, that he cares enough, so much so that if they struggle, if they are uncomfortable, if they are in dire straits, right? That he will say, oh my gosh, what have I done? I'm hurting the citizens that I love. And I think that's a dangerous assumption to make about Vladimir Putin. So the sanctions are meant to make citizens of the country uncomfortable so that you change any level of popularity as it relates to backing what Russia is doing. Now remember, Vladimir Putin has appealed to the common denominator of safety, right? There's always a sales pitch with a war. American leaders do it. Every leader does it in every country. They sell the war. So what was the sales pitch? The sales pitch for Vladimir Putin to the citizens of Russia has been, we're doing this for the safety of Russia. Because if Ukraine joins NATO, now you have this Western alliance that creates a barrier and we are vulnerable to attack because of this alliance, all right? So he's selling it based on, we're doing this to save ourselves. And when you sell a war like that, we did it in America, weapons of mass destruction. Remember, that's how they sold us on the war. There were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, but they needed to sell the war. And so he sold the war. He started selling it, however, during the Trump administration. But once again, the sanctions assume that Vladimir Putin has enough care for Russian citizens for them to be effective. That's one point. The second point is this. At what point in the sanctions escalation do we start actually impacting their ability to shoot and to kill people? War is about blowing things up and killing people. You need ammunition to do that. And you need steady ammunition. Let's go back to what Russia did to assist the Vietnamese soldiers to fight American soldiers. While they were not directly involved in the conflict, what they did is they provided weapons to the Vietnamese in order to destroy and disrupt United States operations and United States military prowess. So there's a real cause and effect relationship to the availability of ammunition and your ability to continue to engage in warfare. My question is, at what point do the sanctions reach that level to actually have an impact on the military capabilities of Russian soldiers?
I would honestly think that we are a very, very long way before getting to that point. Like I said, this has been contemplated for a very long time. Chances are that they have most of the ammunition reserve, weapon reserves they need to keep this going for at least a few months, by which time I actually believe it will probably be resolved. Putin has made a list of demands for his withdrawal, including that a guarantee that Ukraine will not join NATO. And secondly, a recognition of the breakaway republics that are Russian proxy states that he wants recognized. But what I do think that these sanctions will do, I know you mentioned that Putin doesn't ever care about his own people. Even dictators must care about their own people. Sure, the democratic mechanism for voting them out of office isn't there, but political pressure can be tremendous. There's already demonstrations. They've arrested thousands of people in Russia. They're trying to suppress the news, but the fact is thousands of ordinary Russians don't want this war. They've come out against it. They're being repressed very heavily right now.
Right.
How long can this be kept up?
Right, I agree with you. We actually highlighted Russian protesters right here on the show, and it's very clear that even if they lift a sign up, I mean, they're attacked with a SWAT team immediately. They're breaking no actual laws. They're not being violent. They're just trying to express their disagreement with the occupation in Ukraine, and they're getting years in prison for these actions. They're not getting a bond. You go to jail for a few hours like in America, you get a bond, you go home, you go in front of a judge, and it's time served. That's not happening in Russia. So when Russian citizens, and that's why it's important to highlight their voice, when Russian citizens show their public disagreement to the war, they are literally risking their entire lives to do so. So we do highlight them here. John Bolton, who was the former national security guy for Donald Trump, right? He came out recently and said, listen, first of all, Trump didn't know a damn thing about Russia. He didn't even know exactly where Ukraine was located. He knew nothing about that region. And it's interesting when you listen to the narrative of Republicans, because many Republicans are saying, including Donald Trump, if he were president, this would not be happening, right? I don't think a lot of Republicans really believe that. I'm talking about the guys in the leadership class, because he was very soft on Vladimir Putin. Bolton came out, and I think he's more of an authority here because he worked for Trump and he was involved in those discussions about Vladimir Putin. And so Bolton has just come out and said, hey, listen, this invasion in Ukraine has nothing to do with Biden. And the reason it did not happen under Trump is because Putin's military was likely not ready. What is your response to that sentiment from Bolton?
Look, I'm not a military expert, but I would certainly take everything that man says with a massive grain of salt. I mean, he came out, he's got his own skin in the game. He's got his own, he's not the one, his opinion is not universally held. I think it's impossible to say whether this would or would not have happened under Trump. We only deal in hypotheticals. I do know, though, that Trump reportedly told Putin at a private meeting at an international forum years ago when he was president, he said, if you invade Ukraine, I will shoot missiles at Moscow and take down those beautiful golden domes. I'm paraphrasing slightly. Putin apparently laughed in response, not knowing whether to take that seriously. I think the value of Trump, for better or for worse, was that you never quite knew whether he was being serious or not. And to your point about his treatment of Putin and being soft on Putin, look, I mean, I can't necessarily comment on that, but I do note that when Bashar al-Assad, the Syrian leader, was accused of using chemical weapons on his own people, Trump did respond with a surgical strike, which seemed to get that regime to comply. So I don't think you can make a judgment one way or the other.
All right, so let me make a judgment on this. When Donald Trump was president, he lifted sanctions. He had to be voted over, like he had to be overridden by the Congress. A bipartisan vote said, no, we can't do that. We can't lift these sanctions. And according to multiple people who worked in the White House who have now written books, they said every time they were forced to sanction Russia because of a Russia aggression or Russian statement or something that they have done, Trump always complained and said, we're being too hard on Vladimir. We're being too hard on Russia. And so this was universal with everybody who has written a book about Trump and connected to his policy as it relates to Russia. Anytime he did a sanction, it was very reluctantly. It wasn't something he embraced. He wanted to be friends with Vladimir Putin. He wanted to have a friendly relationship with the guy, even if he was contrary to American interests. And you have to remember this, dear brother. 18 intelligence agencies all concluded through independent investigations that Russia was involved in trying to manipulate American democracy at a systemic and sophisticated level. Donald Trump reviewed all 18, well, that's according to Trump. And he came out with the conclusion that Vladimir Putin did not do so. So you mean to tell me you think he would have been tougher on the Russian dictator than Joe Biden is being at the moment?
I think that point is going both ways. I mean, in response to what you just said, one of the things that Trump was heavily against was lifting sanctions that were placed on the Nord Stream 2 proposed gas pipeline between Germany and Russia, which would seriously increase European dependence on Russian fossil fuel, on Russian natural gas. This is one of the pieces of leverage, that is their dependence on Russian natural gas, that Russia is asserting over the European Union going forward. The Biden administration actually lifted those sanctions, and it's in a sense that actually threw Ukraine under the bus because it was losing. The Western alliance was really giving a trump card to the Russian government in a sense. So I think bad decisions have been made by both regimes. I'm not out here to throw around partisan pot shots.
Sure.
I think what's important is what do we do right now? And here's the thing, China is already getting involved. China is speaking to the Ukrainian side. They're trying to be mediators in all of this, trying to fill the peacekeeper role. The problem is they're going to try to spin this in a way that could legitimize their future annexation of Taiwan.
Well, that's exactly what they're going to do, not try. That's the reason why they did not come out boldly and say, listen, this is wrong. They had an extremely watered down response because within the next 5 years, I predict China is going to do the exact same move against Taiwan. And by the way, Donald Trump was helpful in that too, okay? So let me say this very clearly. At some point, Biden is going to have to make a decision. So are everyday American citizens, all right? We're gonna have to make a decision together. And here's the decision. If you do the extreme, I'm talking about in sanctions. If you go all the way, Biden, that means Americans will have to pay more. They will have to pay more in gas. They will have to pay more in consumer products because it will severely impact those industries. So the question is, are we as a country prepared to protect democracy by spending more on the goods and services we receive in this country? That's a real calculation that we may have to deal with very soon. Do you agree?
I agree with that, but I do want to say when it comes to protecting democracy, I think the US has some way to go to earn back some of its moral authority.
Come on, man. We know America's schizophrenic on their domestic versus international policy. So yeah, I agree with you on that. All right, thank you so much, brother. Always a pleasure having you on the show.
No worries, thanks.
Absolutely. All right, don't forget Twitchuation Room is next. Remember, take care of yourself, take care of each other, take care of the planet. Remember, the truth is always indisputable.